480 BC, one of history's greatest battles took place.
To this day, man.
Where just 300 Spartan warriors stood against the massive Persian army. They had no modern weapons, no advanced armor, but they carried something far stronger: unshakable courage, unbreakable unity, and an unending love for their homeland. This wasn't just a fight, it became an immortal symbol of bravery and sacrifice that still inspires the world today. In this video, we'll break down every powerful moment of that epic story: leadership, strategy, betrayal, and ultimate sacrifice. It's told in a way that puts you right there, in the heart of the battle. So without wasting a moment, let's begin this legendary journey, where courage met glory, and history was written in blood and honor. Our story begins in one of the most powerful and legendary kingdoms of ancient Greece, Sparta, a city-state like no other, mighty, rich in wealth, and unmatched in military strength. Its very walls seemed to be built with iron and courage, as kings and emperors from distant lands dreamed of conquering it, but Sparta was always ready for war. Day after day, someone tried to invade, and day after day, Sparta fought back, fearlessly. It was in this world of constant battle that one Spartan soldier, Delios, stood before a group of young warriors. And to prepare them for the fight ahead, he began to tell a story of a war so brutal, so heartbreaking, that no one but Delios survived. And yet, he lived on to tell that story. Not just a tale of blood and battle, but of a king, of sacrifice, and of 300 warriors who became legends. Delios looked at the young men and said, "In Sparta, weakness has no place. To be born here is to be born ready for pain and purpose." And with that, the story fades into the past. A flashback begins. The rules of Sparta were brutal, but they worked. A newborn baby lies before a circle of Spartan warriors, their eyes sharp, their standards unforgiving, because in Sparta there was no place for weakness. Babies born with defects or deformities were left to die, cast down the cliffs, or thrown into rushing waters. Cruel, yes, but this was Sparta, the symbol of discipline, strength, and fearless power. If a child survived this first test, a much harder life awaited. As soon as he could walk, he was trained to fight. He was taught that the highest honor was to fight and even die for Sparta. At just 7 years old, the child was taken from his mother's arms and sent to a harsh military school known as agoge, where boys fought each other, endured hunger, and suffered pain. But the goal wasn't just to harden the body, it was to forge an unbreakable mind. They were told, sweat more in training to bleed less in battle. And that's how Sparta built its army, generation after generation, millions of warriors born from fire. One day, a young boy faced the ultimate test. He was left alone in a frozen forest. No food, no shelter, no one to help him. Only one challenge: survive. Then came the beast, a bloodthirsty wolf with eyes glowing in the cold. The boy didn't run, he didn't flinch. He walked into a mountain crack. The wolf followed, then silence. A sudden strike. The boy's spear drove straight through the wolf's mouth. It was over, and the elders declared, "This boy will one day be king." His name was Leonidas.
To this day, man.
King Leonidas was no longer the young warrior he once was. It had been 30 years since his coronation. Now he was a seasoned ruler and a father. One morning, he was training his young son in the art of war when an old friend arrived with urgent news. "A messenger from the Persian Empire is here. He wishes to speak with you." Leonidas wasted no time. He followed his advisor and found a Persian messenger already waiting, escorted by one of the Spartan counselors. Now remember, in Sparta, a king couldn't go to war just because he wanted to. He needed approval from the council, a group of powerful men known as the ephors. Still, Leonidas turned to the messenger and asked plainly, "What message do you bring from the Persian king?" The messenger replied coldly, "We come seeking earth and water," a phrase that meant Sparta must surrender. Queen Gorgo, standing nearby, raised an eyebrow and asked, "You came all this way for earth and water?" The messenger smirked, and with arrogance dripping from his voice said, "Since when do women speak in the presence of men?" The insult was sharp. Leonidas's face hardened, and he slowly walked toward the messenger. Then came the threat. "King Xerxes always gets what he wants," the messenger warned. "If Sparta refuses, his army and in the millions will come. Your people will be enslaved, your city destroyed." Leonidas stayed calm, but his voice turned cold. "I warned you to choose your words wisely. You insult my queen. You threaten my people. You step into my land and demand our surrender. There must be a price."
No, No man threatens a messenger. This is Sparta!
With that, he threw the messenger into a deep well, dead. The message to Persia was clear. If Xerxes wanted Greece, he'd have to go through Sparta. War was no longer a whisper, it was coming fast. But there was one problem. Spartan law didn't allow the king to declare war without approval, and so began the real battle. A war not just of swords, but of rules, tradition, and sacred law. Leonidas knew what was coming. He had to act now. He climbed high into the mountains, to a sacred temple hidden from the world, where lived the Ephors, Sparta's mystical religious leaders, who called themselves the voice of the gods. Even as king, Leonidas was bound by their will, so he came with gifts, gold, silver, offerings. And when the time was right, he shared his plan. Xerxes has a vast army, yes, but numbers won't help him in the narrow pass, where the sea meets the cliffs. If we fight there, their size becomes their weakness. A few Spartans can hold off thousands. It was a brilliant strategy, but the response was not what he expected. The Ephors shook their heads and said, "No, this month is sacred. It's the festival of Carnia. No wars are to be fought in August. To fight now would anger the gods." Leonidas clenched his jaw, his eyes burning with frustration. "A storm is coming for my people, and you ask me to celebrate?" But the Ephors remained silent, then whispered, "We cannot speak until we consult the oracle." The oracles of Sparta were not priests, but young women, taken as children, kept inside a sacred temple, and driven into trance through smoke, chants, and rituals, a state where they claimed to hear the voice of the gods. One of them now delivered a chilling prophecy. If Sparta goes to war this month, all of Greece will fall. No one dared question the oracle. Her words were law. King Leonidas descended from the temple, disappointed, unaware that the prophecy was a lie. Long ago, King Xerxes of Persia had bought the Ephors' loyalty, bribed them with gold and promises, and not just them, even a powerful Spartan councilman named Theron had sold his soul to Persia. Their plan? Stop Leonidas from going to war, let Sparta fall quietly, and replace its king with someone loyal to Persia. But a true king doesn't kneel to lies, corruption, or fear. Leonidas knew this wasn't just about a battle. It was about the future of his people, his culture, and his child's tomorrow. And so, in silence, he made a decision. At dawn, Leonidas chose 300 of his finest warriors, veterans, brave, and battle-hardened. Among them was his closest friend, who even brought his teenage son along to learn the real meaning of war. As they prepared to leave, Theron and the other council members confronted the king. "You can't go to war. The oracle has forbidden it. This is sacred law." Leonidas smiled and replied, "I'm not going to war. I'm just going for a walk to the north. And these men, they're simply my bodyguards." The council had no reply. They couldn't prove otherwise. And in Sparta, no one questioned a king walking with his guards. Before leaving, Leonidas met with his wife and son. The queen placed a small locket around his neck. No tears, just a quiet smile. Because in Sparta, there is no room for weakness, only courage. As Leonidas led his 300 warriors forward, a twisted, hunchbacked man silently followed them from the shadows, his eyes burning with strange curiosity. Along the way, Leonidas was met by Delios, a commander from a neighboring Greek city who had come to join the fight after hearing about Persia's invasion. But when he saw only 300 soldiers with the Spartan king, he was shocked. "We thought you'd bring thousands," he said. Leonidas calmly asked, "What do your men do?" One said he was a blacksmith, another a potter, a third a farmer. Then Leonidas turned to his own men and shouted, "Spartans, what is your profession?" In one deafening roar, they replied, "War!" The ground shook with their voices, and in that moment, Delios understood Leonidas hadn't brought many men, but he had brought warriors. Together, they marched toward Thermopylae, and behind them, that silent, disfigured man still followed like a shadow. After some distance, they arrived at a village, but something felt wrong. It was dead quiet. Ashes covered the ground, homes were burnt, wood still smoldered in the air. Not a sound, not a soul. The silence was deafening, as if the earth itself had stopped breathing. Suddenly, out of the rubble, a small child emerged, covered in blood, shaking with fear, eyes wide and broken. The boy stumbled toward Leonidas and whispered, "They came from the shadows, like beasts. They killed everyone. They left only me." And then he died in the king's arms. The warriors looked on in silence, but inside, something had changed. This was no longer just a war of honor. This was now a war of vengeance. As they moved further down the path, what they saw next shattered their hearts. The Persians hadn't just destroyed the village, they had slaughtered its people. Men, women, children, no one was spared. Bodies were hung from trees, swaying in the wind like grotesque warnings. Fear was their weapon, terror their message. But the Spartans didn't tremble. They burned it all into their memory, because soon they would return the message. After witnessing the horrors of the destroyed village, Delios, the commander from the neighboring city, turned to King Leonidas and said, "I once heard an ancient tale of dark creatures that feed on men's souls. You can't kill them, not truly, because they're not alive. They are immortals." Leonidas looked up at the sky, calm and steady. Then he spoke just one line, "Immortal or not, they will still face the sword of Sparta." With those fearless words, he led his men forward toward the narrow pass near Thermopylae. Just before reaching it, they arrived at a high cliff overlooking the sea. And there, they saw it. The Persian navy. Not hundreds, but thousands of warships stretched across the ocean like a black tide. It was a storm of wood, steel, and death, heading straight for Greece. And still, from the shadows behind them, that strange hunchbacked man followed in silence, watching every step. Leonidas, ever the warrior, didn't need a prophet. He looked at the clouds, the wind, the waves, and he knew. A storm is coming. That night, the gods made their move. Lightning tore across the sky. Thunder shook the earth. The sea rose like a living beast. Nature itself seemed to join Sparta's cause. The Persian fleet was caught in the chaos. One by one, their massive ships were crushed by waves, split in half, dragged beneath the sea. Lightning struck from above like divine punishment. Hundreds of ships gone. The Spartans stood on the cliffs watching. They shouted in triumph. Some believed it was a blessing from the gods. They cheered, howled, raised their fists to the sky. But while the soldiers celebrated, Leonidas stood silent. His eyes didn't blink, his face didn't smile, because he knew this was only the beginning. The sea had fought for them tonight, but soon they would face a different kind of storm. A storm made of men, of monsters. Of a king who believed he was a god. And when that moment came, Sparta would be ready. Back in Sparta, Queen Gorgo was fighting her own battle, not with swords, but with strategy. She knew in her heart that her husband, King Leonidas, might not survive against the endless Persian army. So she prepared to petition the Spartan council to send reinforcements. But there was a problem. In Sparta, women were not allowed to speak in the council. It was law. So quietly, she summoned her most trusted advisor, a loyal man who not only held influence in the council, but believed deeply in the queen's wisdom. She asked just one thing of him: "Find a way to let me speak. I believe reason and truth can still move them. Sparta must not stand alone." In that moment, Queen Gorgo was more than just a wife. She was a leader fighting for the future of her people. Back at the battlefield, as dawn broke over the cliffs, two Spartan warriors, Xerxes and Stelios, looked down from the hilltops. From the horizon, they saw the Persian army approaching again. Huge, relentless. Even after losing hundreds of men in the storm, they seemed endless. Xerxes turned pale. "We might not make it out alive." But Stelios smiled and said, "I fought in many battles. I've yet to meet a man who could kill me. All these soldiers just mean one thing: more heads to take." Xerxes looked at him in awe, because that was the Spartan way. They didn't fear death. Down below, King Leonidas and his warriors struck fast, finishing off the Persians who survived the storm. Soon, scouts returned with news. "A massive Persian force is marching in." Leonidas didn't hesitate. He gave a chilling order: "Use their dead. Build a wall." And so the Spartans gathered the enemy's fallen bodies, stacking them high, one after another. A wall of corpses, rising like a grim monument to Spartan defiance. No fear, no retreat, only purpose. Just as the wall neared completion, a Persian messenger came riding in, his eyes wild with rage, his voice sharp with fury. He shouted, "You really think killing a few men will win this war? Our numbers are in the millions. When we fire our arrows, the sky turns black, and your brave Spartans will fall to their knees." Stelios stepped forward, calm and fearless. He smiled and said, "Then we'll fight in the shade." The messenger snapped. He raised a whip and lashed it at Stelios. But in a flash, Stelios blocked the blow and sliced the man's hand clean off. His eyes burned with fire. His voice was steel. "You want war? Then come fight us face to face. This wall isn't finished yet. We could use more bodies." The messenger fell to his knees, howling in pain. and with a broken, angry growl, he screamed, "By tonight, your king will kneel before Xerxes, and all of Sparta will belong to Persia." But the Spartans didn't blink. They just stared back, ready. Meanwhile, King Leonidas sat by the sea with his captain discussing the harsh truth. Could they really stop the massive Persian army that was approaching? And then, we finally see the strange, hunchbacked man again, the one who had been silently following the Spartans. This time, he steps forward, directly in front of the king. With a trembling voice and his head lowered, he says, "My lord, forgive me. My name is Ephialtes. I was born on Spartan soil, but I was born deformed. Because of that, my parents were forced to flee Sparta. But my whole life, I've dreamed of fighting as a true Spartan. Please, give me a chance. Let me fight beside you." Leonidas is moved by the man's passion and loyalty. But as a seasoned warrior, he knows the truth. Ephialtes cannot survive on the battlefield. Instead, the king gently responds, "If you truly want to serve Sparta, then help care for the wounded. Bring food and water to those who need it. That too is a noble duty. But war is not your path." Ephialtes says nothing. His face drops in shame and fury. He turns away, heartbroken, and in rage, he hurls his shield into the sea. Back on the cliffs, Leonidas heads down to his men to prepare for battle. Suddenly, the ground begins to tremble. At first, the Spartans think it's an earthquake, but Leonidas knows better. "This is no earthquake," he says. "It's the sound of an army, thousands marching toward us." He turns to his warriors and shouts, "Get ready! Today, we make history. Show them what it means to face Spartans." The soldiers gear up.
Shields, boys!
Shields raised, spears in hand, ready to meet death with honor. Soon, a Persian commander approaches, flanked by thousands of troops. He yells, "You still have time to surrender. Lay down your weapons, or you will all be slaughtered." Before he can finish his sentence, a Spartan spear slices through the air, striking him dead on the spot. With that, the battle explodes. The Persians charge like a flood, but the Spartans stand firm, positioned in a narrow pass, forcing the enemy to attack in small waves. Their formation is perfect. Their strikes are precise. They fight like one mind, one machine. This is no ordinary army. These are warriors forged over centuries. Words can't truly describe the level of action that unfolds here. It's one of the reasons why this film, 300, remains one of the most iconic battle epics of all time. Though released back in 2006, it still lives on in the hearts of movie lovers everywhere. Spartan battle code was simple: no mercy, no prisoners, only victory. They fought so fiercely they began throwing Persian bodies off the cliffs into the sea, wave after wave. As the battle seemed to calm for a moment, the sky suddenly turned black. The Persians launched a storm of arrows. The sun disappeared under a hail of dark shadows. But the Spartans didn't panic. They knelt down, raised their shields, and waited. Stelios, ever the warrior, looked around and said with a grin, "See that? Looks like we're really fighting in the shade." The arrows passed, the skies cleared, but the war was just heating up. And then, a thunder of hooves. The dust lifted to reveal a terrifying sight: a massive Persian cavalry charge, armored riders metal-clad, swords gleaming. They were fast. They were brutal. Each one looked like death on horseback. But the Spartans didn't flinch. They tightened formation, spears pointed forward, shields raised high. They stood their ground, knowing full well this wave would be faster and deadlier. And then, another wave of violence began. The Spartans fought with unshakable courage, perfect timing, and brutal strength. Though they were few in number, their will was unstoppable. They moved as one, each strike an act of discipline, training, and raw heart. And against all odds, they defeated the entire Persian cavalry charge without losing a single Spartan. Back in Sparta, Queen Gorgo was fighting her own battle, not with weapons, but with strategy. She met secretly with her most trusted royal advisor. In a low voice, he warned her, "You want to speak in the council, but your biggest obstacle is Theron. He only cares about himself. If he doesn't get what he wants, he blocks everyone. If you want to act fast, you may have to give him something to get him on your side." The queen's eyes turned cold. She shrugged and replied, "My husband doesn't have 2 days. He's already at war. And every second counts." The advisor, looking helpless, softly said, "I understand, my queen, but I have no other way. Your husband broke Spartan law by going to war. Right now, defending him politically is almost impossible." Meanwhile, King Leonidas learned that some Greek city-states wanted to stand with Sparta. They had sent requests for permission to join the fight. Just then, Stelios rushed in with urgent news. The Persian Emperor Xerxes himself was coming to meet the king. The long-awaited moment had arrived. King Leonidas stood face to face with the most fearsome and powerful emperor the world had ever known, Xerxes. With a booming voice full of power and menace, Xerxes stepped forward and said, "Come, Leonidas, instead of war, let us settle this with peace. Bloodshed with warriors like you is only wasteful and costly for me. If you bow to me, my empire's strength will multiply. In both life and death, we will become unmatched. I will crown you the supreme commander of Persia's armies and place all the swords of Europe in your hands. Under your command, the Persian forces will be unstoppable. Power, honor, and eternal legacy, these are the promises I offer you." But Leonidas, firm and unyielding, answered, "I have walked through pain, my feet wounded by countless battles against your soldiers, but I will never bow. Your promises won't tempt me. Unless you can erase my pain by stepping on my wounds, only then might I consider your words." Xerxes' pride twisted into rage. His voice thundered with bitter hatred and insult. "I will wipe the Spartans from history. Every trace of your existence will be destroyed. Every book written about you will burn to ashes. No one will ever know there was a king named Leonidas." In that roar, it was clear. Xerxes' heart burned with an unimaginable hatred and thirst for revenge. He was ready to unleash his full fury on Sparta. With that, Xerxes turned and left. Meanwhile, the Spartans fought with incredible courage and skill against the Persian soldiers, piling up a massive mountain of enemy bodies, an undeniable symbol of their victory. But despite this glorious achievement, King Leonidas was deep in thought. He knew that a terrifying night awaited, one that would be remembered in history as a dark and dreadful chapter, because tonight, Xerxes, the Persian emperor, was unleashing his most fearsome and shadowy army, known as the Ghosts of the Darkness. Their eyes glowed with a strange, eerie light. Their teeth were sharp like deadly chains, and their nature was monstrous and cruel. For over 500 years, these soldiers had obeyed the Persian emperor's highest orders. They were Asia's most ruthless, inhuman, and relentless warriors. No one had ever defeated them. That's why they were called the Soulless Immortals. They never died, only brought terror wherever they marched. But Leonidas, with unshakable courage and spirit, led the Spartans to plunge into the fiery battle. Facing these dark ghosts marked a new and brutal chapter in the Spartans' history. This enemy was fiercer and deadlier than anything they had faced before. Many brave Spartans fell as martyrs, but they never backed down. In the heat of battle, they came face to face with a monstrous warrior, so powerful and terrifying that no one could defeat him. Leonidas, with unmatched bravery, blinded one of the monster's eyes, but the beast did not stop. Finally, in a deadly struggle, Leonidas cut the monster's throat, ending its reign of terror. At the same time, Leonidas secretly ordered xerxes and his less skilled troops to launch an attack on the Persian ghost army. Though many of these inexperienced soldiers died in the first fight, their patience and sacrifice helped the Spartans completely defeat the Persian Ghosts of the Darkness. Even Xerxes, who believed himself a god, felt a shadow of fear and doubt creep into his heart. This battle was not just a test of Spartan bravery, it was an epic story of unyielding willpower and the fight for supremacy. That night was a great victory and celebration for the Spartan soldiers. They embraced each other and celebrated because their courage and strong determination had defeated the Persian Empire's best and most terrifying soldiers. This victory filled the Spartans with huge confidence. They believed that just as they had beaten the Persian elite forces, they could easily win against any enemy in the future. The next morning, the Spartans stood united and fully prepared to fight the Persian army again. Their intense training, fearless courage, and unbeatable fighting spirit caused the Persians to lose soldier after soldier. Shaken by defeat and desperation, the Persian commanders brought in a terrifying new force, the monstrous Gander chariot warriors. These Ganders were unstoppable fighters, famous in history for their incredible muscle strength and brutal cruelty. Their arrival turned the battlefield into a deadly storm, a symbol of destruction for the enemy. But the Spartans' unbreakable spirit, fearless bravery, and unity made even this fierce force unable to stand against them. The Spartans blocked every strike and attack, defeating one Gander warrior after another, leading them to destruction. Their tough training and experience, combined with their strong will, created an amazing example of how to destroy even the cruelest enemy. Though the Persians had great muscle power, the Spartans' battle strategy and teamwork pushed them back again and again. Then the Persians used gunpowder and continued attacking Leonidas' forces. They hoped that the explosive power of gunpowder would change the course of the battle, but the Spartans cleverly destroyed their gunpowder supplies and stopped their attacks from succeeding. Seeing this, King Xerxes' anger reached its peak. He saw his humiliation reflected in the failure of his soldiers and commanders, and he punished them harshly, cutting their heads off to show his fury. Then, as a stronger weapon, he sent a huge army of war elephants into battle. Their arrival turned the battlefield into a nightmare, but the Spartans, with their experience and focus, pushed the terrifying elephant army off the cliffs into the sea. When victory was close, the Persians used a cruel trick. They brutally killed the young son of the Spartan captain right before his eyes. This heartbreaking act shattered the captain's mind, pushing him to the edge of madness. But his pain and anger only gave the Spartans more strength and courage. Fueled by grief and rage, the captain led a fierce attack on the Persian soldiers in the rocky pass, killing many enemies. Finally, in this historic battle, the Spartans won a great victory through their unmatched bravery, unity, and battle skill. But at that very moment, another dark story was being written in secret. That crippled man named xerxes, who had once begged Leonidas to let him join the Spartan army, quietly left and went to the Persian king Xerxes' palace. The palace was huge and golden, full of luxury and indulgence. Around him were gold coins, precious jewels, lavish furniture, and beautiful women. Ephialtes was overwhelmed by the sight. King Xerxes looked at Ephialtes and said, "If you bow to me and show me the secret path into Sparta, I will give you gold, women, palaces, everything you want. I am ready to give you even more than that." Hearing these tempting promises, Ephialtes' eyes lit up. Years of neglect and shame vanished in an instant. Lowering his gaze, filled with a mix of shame and greed, he slowly knelt at King Xerxes' feet, choosing in that moment to betray Sparta and give up his honor. At the same time, Theron came to see the Spartan queen. He had already advised her to mourn quietly, believing deep down that Leonidas could not stand against the vast Persian army of millions. Theron saw no hope for Leonidas' victory. Theron said, "After the king's death, I will marry you." Angered, the queen slapped Theron across the face. Furious, Theron grabbed her by the neck and said with a serious voice, "Your husband has broken Sparta's laws by going to war. If he returns safely, I will imprison him. But if you want, I can arrange for you to speak in the council, and I can send soldiers to rescue the king." But Theron had only one real demand. The queen had to spend the night with him. In this difficult situation, the queen was forced to give in to Theron's demand. The next morning, King Leonidas called his trusted soldier Delius and said, "I want you to take over 100 wounded warriors and return to Sparta immediately. Go back and tell everyone how we fought, what we faced, and how we never backed down for even a moment. Let all of Greece remember this. Either live with honor following our path, or die with honor." Delius did not want to leave the king alone, but Leonidas gave him a locket from his wife and said, "This is not just a keepsake. It's my faith, my legacy. Take it and spread our story." Then he bid farewell to Delius and the wounded soldiers. Back on the battlefield, Leonidas addressed his soldiers with a strong and emotional voice during their final preparations. "Eat well this morning, for tonight we will dine in hell." Meanwhile, the Spartan queen bravely appeared in the council that day. Standing before the council members, she spoke firmly, "Today, a terrible war has begun in our kingdom. Our enemies have invaded our borders, yet you all sit here as if nothing is happening. Every law in our land was made to protect our country and secure the future of our people. But if you stay silent today and refuse to act because of those laws, tomorrow Sparta, this very kingdom, will no longer exist." She continued, "King Leonidas stands at the border risking his life. He fights for every family here, for the future of every child in this state. I don't ask you for favors, I ask for your hearts. Support Leonidas. Otherwise, soon your laws, your families, even the state of Sparta will be gone." Right after her powerful speech, Theron suddenly stood up. Pretending to defend himself, he said, "Queen, there's no use in such emotional speeches in the council. The pride of Sparta lies in following our laws. That is why our country has been safe so far. But your husband, the king, has broken those laws by going to war. He has put us all in grave danger." Then Theron went further and insulted the queen directly. "You yourself are not honest to Sparta. You are shameless. Today you betrayed your husband and became my companion. If tomorrow you do the same with Xerxes, our Sparta will be completely destroyed. The future of this kingdom is never safe in the hands of someone like you." Unable to bear this insult and disrespect, the queen exploded with anger. Without hesitation, she drew a sharp dagger from her waist and stabbed Theron straight in the stomach. Theron writhed and fell to the ground, dying on the spot. Suddenly, some Persian gold coins fell beside his body, proof of the bribe from King Xerxes. Seeing the coins, the entire council fell silent. Everyone realized that Theron was actually a traitor, a sellout ready to hand his homeland over to the enemy. His mask was torn off before all, and justice was served through the queen. In this way, the queen not only defended her own honor, but also saved the entire nation from a great betrayal. Meanwhile, guided by the traitor Ephialtes, the Persian army secretly took a hidden mountain path and reached behind the Spartan camp under the cover of darkness. At dawn, they surrounded King Leonidas and his few remaining soldiers from all sides. Despite the overwhelming number of enemies and the clever trap, the Spartans showed no fear. They knew death was certain ahead, and they were ready to face it with honor. At that moment, a Persian messenger approached Leonidas and delivered a message from King Xerxes. "King Leonidas, our emperor, Xerxes is deeply impressed by your bravery, leadership, and courage. You have broken his laws, rejected his offers, and fought his army, yet he is willing to forgive you. If you surrender now and acknowledge Xerxes' greatness, you will be honored as a Persian general." Along with this, Ephialtes pleaded, "Great king, you are unique. You are Sparta. Please surrender and save yourself. Your survival is the hope for our future." But Leonidas' eyes still burned with determination. He did not yield for even a moment. He knew that an honorable death is the destiny of a true warrior. Every soldier standing beside him was ready to give their life for him. This was not just a battle, it was a proud chapter in history. Tired, Leonidas looked at Ephialtes and quietly said, "Live long." These words were no blessing, but a silent curse. Live, but with the shame of a traitor. Then the king slowly knelt down. From afar, it looked like he was surrendering. Xerxes thought victory was near, but he did not realize Leonidas' silence was also a battle tactic. Suddenly, Leonidas gave a powerful symbolic shout. Immediately, Stelios, one of his bravest warriors, leapt at the enemy messenger and killed him. At the same time, Leonidas threw his spear with full strength toward Xerxes. The spear grazed the side of Xerxes' face but did not kill him. Without mercy, the Persian soldiers unleashed a rain of millions of arrows. The sky darkened with their flight. One by one, Leonidas and his warriors fell bloody to the ground, but none turned their backs. None surrendered. Thus ended the epic chapter of King Leonidas' life. He gave his life, but left behind an eternal inspiration that true leadership means standing for justice, courage, and honor. His sacrifice is not just a story of war, but a timeless symbol of heroism carved into history. Meanwhile, following Leonidas' orders, Delius returned to Sparta with the wounded soldiers. Upon returning, the first thing he did was hand the queen a special locket, the same one Leonidas had given her before the battle as a keepsake. The queen silently accepted it and placed it around their son's neck, so that Leonidas' memory, sacrifice, and bravery would live on through future generations. But the war doesn't end here. When Delius returns to Sparta, he becomes more than just a soldier. He becomes a living storyteller. He travels through every corner of the city, spreading the incredible tale of bravery by Leonidas and the 300 Spartan warriors. Their sacrifice, their unbreakable spirit, and their refusal to bow before the mighty Persian army ignite a fire of inspiration throughout all of Greece. At this moment, the movie returns to the opening scene, where the soldier Leonidas stands before his comrades and proudly shares the glory of Sparta. He says, "My king, my brothers, my comrades, they gave their lives for us. 300 brave warriors stood against 300,000 Persian soldiers. They were not just a wall, they were a symbol of sacrifice, an unbreakable shield." He continues, "Our king's only wish was that we remember him, carry on his ideals, and protect that honor in every battle to come. We did not lose. We made history." A year passes. Leonidas' sacrifice lights a fire in the hearts of every Spartan. That fire grows into a revolution. Throughout Greece, especially Sparta, people rise up for revenge against the Persians. 10,000 Spartan warriors unite, led by Delius, Leonidas' close companion and a witness who returned from the battle. This time, they move forward not just to defend themselves, but to take ultimate revenge against the Persian Empire. They are disciplined, united, and burning with fierce determination. They will win, no matter the cost. And with this powerful scene, the movie slowly comes to an end. The story finishes here, but the sacrifice of Leonidas and the bravery of Sparta live on through the ages, forever inspiring the hearts of people. Friends, how did you like today's story? It's based on a true historical event. There is also a second part. If you want to see the second part, please comment below. If you are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe and stay with us. Thank you so much for watching this video.
This day.